This is the Bethune-Cookman University Wildcat News Feed on Sirius XM, Radio Channel 142. HBCU, broadcasting from the Wildcat Lab in Daytona Beach, Florida. WELE 1380, The Cat. It's time to hear the good news from BCU.
Good afternoon and welcome to the BCU Wildcat News Feed, also known as #TalkTuesday, the place where we get the real, raw, and relevant facts about what's going down on the campus of Bethune-Cookman University and campuses all around the world. I am your host, Franshawn Reed-Barnes, and you are listening to WELE 1380 The Cat. Over the past several months, historically black colleges and universities have been at the epicenter of media crisis and frenzy. Bethune-Cookman University has certainly led the pack. In May 2017, the university reached national news when President Edison O. Jackson invited Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos to bring the spring 2017 commencement address. 2 months later, in July 2017, the university came under fire again regarding misappropriation of funds and a $305 million dorm deal. This inevitably led to the early retirement of President Edison O. Jackson and the appointment of interim President Hubert Grimes. So today, we will be discussing crisis management for HBCUs. Here to help us understand what it takes to come through the storms of crisis communication is the Fantastic Four, the communications team of Bethune-Cookman University. Welcome, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So today with us, we have Ursula James, Assistant Director of Communications, Troy Lyle, Multimedia Specialist, and Edward Tucker, Graphic Designer, as well as myself, Franshawn Reed-Barnes, Virtual Communications Manager. So before we get started, guys, tell us a little bit about what your roles are and your daily duties in communications.
All right, well, I guess I'll start off. My daily roles as Assistant Director of Communications is really to see the operational side of everything, to make it flow, focusing on our advertising, our media partners, getting the good news of the university out to our students and alumni and constituents, faculty and staff, collaborating with the university and different departments to gain news from them, working with my wonderful team to do the videos for the news and the graphics for the ads, and working with Fran so that you can push it out to our virtual community. And so that is my day-to-day, just making sure that we are getting that news out there.
Edward?
Well, I'll go greetings and humble salutation. My job title is graphic designer, and my number one responsibility is to tell the story of Bethune-Cookman University through the visual arts. This is a way that people who have never touched the grounds of Bethune-Cookman, they can get an idea of what we stand for, what we represent, and what our day-to-day representations of BCU through the media and through our internal system of, communication.
And what I do as multimedia specialist is similar to what Edward does, but I use video to be able to transmit the information or disseminate the information towards the college. So what me and Edward get to do is really, really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We have a good time.
We have a great time.
You guys
We make some really cool stuff.
You
We
do.
make the
You
magic
guys
happen.
do. Yeah.
You all do. And as for myself, Franshawn Barnes, Virtual Media Manager, it's my job just to share the fun, good news online with our audience and to create other ways of engagement as well as fundraising for the university. So everything that Edward, Troy, and Ursula create, I put out there, and I also am the voice of the university to alumni and students and our partners. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get straight into our conversation today, which surrounds crisis management. Ursula, can you tell us what is crisis management and how do you know when it's needed?
Crisis management. So the word crisis, a situation seen or unforeseen that happens to an individual, a university, a corporation that is threatening their brand reputation, their company or their organization. And how we get through that is a process. And so with that, we have to go through several steps.
Okay. Now, you talked about several steps that a university or a brand will have to go through. Can you give us a few of those steps that someone might have to go through when crisis hits?
Okay, so first, if you foresee a crisis happening, coming right at you, you have to put together a plan. Have a really strong team that we have here that can put together a strategic plan to help move through the crisis, to work with collaborators, to be storytellers, to speak on behalf of the crisis and what's happening, and to really put out a positive message to turn the story around, to bring positivity to what's happening.
Now, you talked about creating a voice. Where does that voice come from? Does it come from the Office of Communications? Are there other people that have to have a seat at the table? And how do you manage that?
So based on whatever brand you are working within, ours being a university, a historically black college and university, and Dr. Bethune being the founder, we wanted to speak on the voice of her legacy, what she has instilled into this university, where it started from, and kind of turn that story around so that the students, alumni, and our supporters would see that what we were doing was to be positive and not taken negatively.
So can one person do it all? Because I have a question here that says, what are the essential skill sets or resources needed to address a crisis? Sometimes you have someone who's a contracted PR agent and they handle everything, but then we have our team sitting here. So what are the skill sets that are needed to handle a crisis?
Definitely organization, creativity, energy, enthusiasm, positivity, someone that thinks strategically, someone that can tell a story in different ways. Not one person can do it at all. And it also depends on the crisis and the severity of the crisis. And we also have to remember that you can get through any crisis. It may take a while, some take longer than others, but you cannot do it alone. So you have to have a strong team that's willing to literally push through the crisis, because it's easy to give up in the middle of the crisis if things are not going as planned based on your plan that you've created as a team.
Now, Edward, I might be jumping the gun,
All right.
but I know that you are an alum of the university. And one of the first storms that hit Bethune-Cookman University was when Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos, came to campus. And I know you were very instrumental to our team in helping us tell the story. So do you believe that in crisis communication for HBCUs that the history of the university is important and the presence of alumni at the table is important as well?
Oh, absolutely. So I would first say I would have much rather heard the Honorable Secretary of Education DeVos speak at a Fried Chicken Wednesday in the cab. But as an alum, I respected the decisions of administration. I had my own personal feelings, but I understand that in a crisis, when everybody is not on the same page, it's important to, like you said, look at our foundation. Because in today's time, we respond off of impulse. And back then, they've been through so much more than a Secretary of Education who we wouldn't agree with coming to speak. And it's just an uproar. So getting on the same page and just telling the story of the university and convincing the alumni who know the story that this is where we come from and this is how we should pull together to receive this.
That's great. Now, this is a question for the entire team, and maybe Ursula or Edward will spearhead this, but when you have your own businesses, as we all do, and then you're also a part of a university, and you do the same things personally as well as you do professionally for the university, how do you speak to the public and share with them that the voice of the university may not necessarily match your opinion? How do you help them separate that, where they think, oh, this is Ursula saying this is how the university feels, or this is Troy saying how the university feels? How do you handle that, or how should someone handle that when they're in that position?
Well,
Sure.
I think you have two different perspectives there. You have your own personal beliefs, like Edward has said, but at the end of the day, you are paid to do a job for the university and do what's right for the university. And you have people that you are accountable to. So whatever message that you do as a collective that has to get out, that's what you're going to put forward, is that message. On the other hand, again, I'm not too fond of the policies that come from the Secretary of Education, but that's my personal belief. And on my own company, I can express that. But for the college, I have to express something different. And you have to look at both sides of this argument. Was it a good thing? Could it be a good thing? And I think that's what we tried to do, was try to get to the public to see both sides of this narrative. And as far as my company, I don't think I would had Secretary DeVos come to my establishment, just based on my constituents or the clientele that I deal with.
So if we have someone listening to this broadcast, would you all suggest that if they're handling crisis communication for a university, that they not share their personal opinion at the same time?
I believe that if they are working with the university, or they're working for the university, that is one thing. And everyone has to come to the table, and everyone will come to the table with different opinions. But we all have to come to one conclusion that will push the university forward. So coming up with that message, coming up with that story to share with the public, and then moving forward with that message and sticking to that message, not budging on your personal feelings and how you feel personally, and not budging on the message of that, what we're sharing with the public to push forward the university.
And that is important about having a strong team. Like, as an alum, and how I had my personal feelings about the decision that was made, I had a strong team that's, work through my personal feelings. I had the opportunity to express every last one of them. I didn't really hold back anything. But with the team, it's about getting to the common denominator, and they helped me through that.
So, Ursula, you spoke about how to handle a crisis when you foresee it coming, but now I want to talk about how to handle a crisis when you don't see it coming, or when you don't have the opportunity to share the news first. So, one of the most recent crises that BCU had was Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos speaking at UAll's 2017 commencement. The news that she would be speaking at UAll's graduation was released by another source other than BCU. So alumni heard it from somewhere else. Yes. And I think Bethune-Cookman University didn't announce it until a few days later. What do you do when that happens? How do you regain control of the situation?
Really, at that point, it's not about regaining control. It's about taking control of the message you do have and continuing to move forward with what you have. We had no control over leaks and what goes out into the atmosphere based off of hearsay and whatnot. And that happens because there's a quote that I heard that said, "Don't let their internet rush you." Everybody is so quick to post to social media and use their Twitter fingers to put things out there that are not even confirmed. At that time of release from alumni and friends, the information was not confirmed that Betsy DeVos would be here at the university. When we released it was when it was confirmed. So I just would like to say that you just can't do anything about that. You have to let people, use their expression, but you just gain control and keep going forward with your message.
I like that. Now, were you all prepared to change your mind if the pushback from alumni and students was too much?
Were we prepared to change our mind as a team or as
the university, I guess I should say, about her invitation?
Gotcha. Based on the work that we were doing, we were not prepared to change our mind because we had a goal, and the goal was to tell our story. The goal was to have our commencement speaker attend graduation, give her speech, and allow her to sit down with students and kind of get their input as well. So that was the goal. We stuck to the goal and we pushed forward with what we were doing. So we did not prepare for if the administration decided to pull back on her attending, but I think we could have prepared for that.
Now, one thing I think you all did really well was you all held a number of forums, and you put those forums on Facebook Live. You all also told the stories of students and of Dr. Bethune and why the president made this decision. Help us understand how you all told that story, or how you all shared why you all made the decision, because I think you all did that really well.
Well, made what decision?
How you all made the decision to tell a story. Like, I know there were graphics out there. You all educated them on the history of Betsy DeVos, and I'll share from the social media side.
Mm-hmm. Well, we came together. Of course, we met with other administrators, talked about what was to come with U.S. Secretary and what she would be doing here first. And that's how we were able to shape our story, along with hearing from Miss Daisy Grimes on the legacy of the university, hearing from Edward and what he knows about the legacy of Dr. Bethune, and really getting the insight of those key people that know the legacy of Dr. Bethune and what she's previously done while she was living, and pretty much working with anyone that would help the university. And so that's how we were able to tell that story, and we were able to do it, like Edward said, through visuals and videos and graphics. And I don't know if anyone else wants to add to that.
I'll chime in. I noticed on social media, one of the things we tried to do was just tell the story, was to show the university side and why we decided to make the decision. And we did that with a number of memes. Like, our hashtag was BCU builds bridges, BCU does not burn bridges, BCU forward. And so we kept moving forward with that. So we would share pictures of Dr. Bethune with people who were controversial during her time, helping raise funds. We had the provost speaking to students. We had the president sharing his perspective. And so we were very open about the reasons we felt like we made this decision. And I think that helped with our reasoning, the videos and the memes. I don't know if you guys want.
Well, one thing about legacy is fact. I couldn't represent it on my own opinion, or nothing wouldn't be represented as far as this. And I wouldn't want to represent the voice of the people who made the decision, because at the same time, that didn't agree with the students. But at the end of the day, one thing that we can all come together and respect is the legacy of the university and the legacy which our founder built and laid. And it applies a lot to the situation that we had. So if it was any way for us to come together and try to understand what's really going on and why is it happening, we just revert back to legacy.
Troy?
Well, again, like Edward said, it's all about the legacy of the school, and how she reached across, other lines, color lines, to build this university. And I think that's where the last administration was going from, was, hey, they're going to be in office for 4 years. Let's reach across the line and see if we can make and build these relationships like Dr. Bethune did. And it was really, I would say, controversial based on what Betsy DeVos said about HBCUs. So I could see the perspective from the students. Why would we invite this lady here when she doesn't know anything about us? And it was a great chance for the students to show what this university was about. And I do applaud the students for actually protesting in the way that they did. They were not disruptive. A lot of the, I guess you would say, news that was out there said that they were booing, and in fact they did not. They kept quiet and they stood silently as the crowd was booing the secretary. So again, hats off to the graduates. They did a great job.
That's awesome. And what I hear in the whole team describing the process, Ursula, is what you said earlier, is when you're in crisis, stick to your story and continue to tell it. And I think that's the one thing BCU did very well through every medium. Now, when I asked Ursula to interview you, you asked me if the entire BCU communications team could be present. Can you all tell me what role does social media, graphics, and video play into crisis management? Because some people might say all you need is a press release. That's it.
Not in this day and age. Not in this day and age. Like Ursula said, there's so many different platforms where you can get your message out. And we were actually watching, once we put out something, there were several different, there's people that would comment on it. And I mean, some of it was really, really ugly. Yes. So it's not just a press release. I mean, Ursula had to answer the phone constantly. Emails. I mean, in this digital age, we have so many platforms that we have to cover. So, and the way people get their information now is totally different. The millennials get it different from, let's say, the older generation who still like print. So we really had to put videos out to establish one type of group, or go to Facebook for this demographic, Twitter for this demographic, and Instagram for this demographic. So there's several different demographics that we had to reach to get the message out, to show what we were doing here at BCU was not a really bad thing. It might not have been a popular thing, but it wasn't bad at all.
Well, I just want to say that it was definitely popular. We made international news. And if no one knew Bethune-Cookman University before and Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, they knew during the month of April and May. And I'll piggyback off of what Troy said. Like, there are several platforms that we've had to, target different age groups, target different groups. Our constituents, they wanted emails, they wanted phone calls. Our donors, they wanted emails and phone calls. Our alumni, they needed email, they needed social media, they needed Facebook. So several different platforms that we had to put out information to get the message across to our different groups.
Great. Now, another HBCU invited a controversial political figure to their 2017 commencement, but decided not to go through with it because of the pushback from their students. You all didn't change your minds and made it through the crisis quite well. Why do you think BCU had a different outcome?
Well, because of the controversy with what Secretary DeVos said early on about historically black colleges and universities, we were able to know what was coming. So we prepared for what was coming. Even though it had not been confirmed that she was attending graduation till closer to commencement, we still wanted to prepare for what was ahead of us. And we knew that there would be pushback from alumni, from students, from community organizations, from national organizations, about what was going to take place.
And I think that the invitation stood in its place because upon her being invited, the relationship started to being built. So it's like we invited her into the house, talking about the things that we can do for Bethune-Cookman University. And when that conversation is made, it's not like, well, you can say somebody is mad, so you're going to have to go ahead on by your business,
And we didn't have the luxury. There's a saying, when the stuff hits the fan, turn the fan off. We didn't have a chance to turn the fan off before the stuff hit it. So we were
the fan was on level 4.
Yeah, it was on 4. It was blowing it everywhere. So we didn't really have that chance in coming together. I mean, I don't think this is something that any of us have really experienced.
Not on this level. No.
Not on this level, and it was a trying 2 weeks. Very trying 2 weeks.
We
put in a lot of work.
2 solid
We put in a lot of work to try and not stop it, I guess, to put out the information that the administration wanted to put out. And I applaud my teammates.
Yes.
Because we did a great job.
Absolutely.
I thought we did a great job. Even the people on social media didn't like what we were putting out, but they said their PR is on point. who's doing their PR.
Right.
We have an alumni, BCU alumni,
Yeah.
FAMU alumni.
That's right.
She in here striking in the radio
BCU
station.
alumni.
Ursula?
Yes.
I'm in the
Don't do that.
Yeah, I sure did.
So
I love the Wildcats, though. HBCU pride.
That's
Yes.
right.
we did a great job.
So,
We did.
and I will say also to applaud you all that we could see the narrative changing as we got closer to commencement. And so we allowed our friends of Bethune-Cookman University and alum and proud and prideful students to use their voice, to be upset, to express themselves, but at the same time be respectful of your commencement speaker, because this event is for you all. And we also, I will say, in that process, we did not want to deter from highlighting our graduates. We still highlighted our graduates on social media up until graduation day. On graduation day, we put out news about students that have received jobs. We put out news about students and families that were coming to celebrate one another. So even though the crisis took over, we still wanted to make sure that our graduates felt special. And we did that to the best of our ability.
In crisis management, is there ever a point where you should change your mind or change the story? Should you be open to that? Or should you always stick to the story, never be open to hearing what your audience has to say? Is there a rule?
No, there is no rule, but I do believe that you should take in consideration what your audience has to say, because essentially we are engaging them. We're putting the information out there. We know we're going to receive feedback. So at some point, depending on the crisis, you may have to change your narrative. You may have to turn the corner and say, okay, no more of this. We're going to do this instead. So yes, sometimes the plan will change.
Now, the attitude towards the university seems to have changed in a more positive direction since the Betsy DeVos situation. Why do you think that is? Well, from my observation, I think in our staff meetings you said something, Ursula, was you thought their attitude had changed because we just consistently continued to put the good news out there. We didn't allow the negativity to change the situation. We continued to highlight the good going on.
Absolutely.
And inevitably, I think the good outweighed the bad.
Absolutely. And I will say that for alum of the university, especially alum, because they love to highlight one another, as they should. They've attended the university. Some of them are still living, bless the Lord, that have been here when Dr. Bethune was here. And so we love to highlight the people that are doing great things for Bethune-Cookman University and in the community. So yes, continue to put the good news out about even students that are receiving scholarships, doing great research, faculty and staff that are publishing, becoming authors, becoming presenters at conferences, continuously putting out the good news. And that's across all of our several platforms with video. Troy doing video interviews with some of our professors, and Edward doing graphics and promoting conferences and different events across campus for students to take part in, and Fran putting out the information and engaging them and going live and talking to our audience. It all works together to put out a positive message.
Now, you all just recently appointed a new president, and I want to get to that in a moment. But my final question for the DeVos situation is, if you all could do anything differently, what would it be and why?
I think from my aspect of video, I would have, what I would have liked to do or have done differently would be to get more perspective from the students, in which we did not do. Why they are protesting or why they don't like this decision, and just have them have their voice and their platform also. I think that's the only thing I would really have done differently.
Yeah, I agree.
Same here. I would have gotten the student voice, faculty and staff, alum a lot sooner. I believe that we could have engaged them earlier on, had this been in conversation, because it had been in conversation, because that process doesn't happen overnight is why I say that. So if that had been in conversation early on in the year, because we know when graduation is in May, I felt that we probably should have engaged them early on. And I would like to say this, and I don't know if this will be put on. However, we were not aware until later. So that's why we could not engage them. So
Now, you all have had a new president operating for about 24 days. Now, what advice do you all have for handling the early retirement of one president and the appointment of another?
Out with the old and in with the new.
That part.
And I would say that
We can cut that.
I would say that, Dr. Jackson retiring early was not a bad thing. Things happen. And so we have a new president, acting president, Judge Grimes, and he came in ready to solve problems and make a change. So that's what we are looking towards.
So are you all prepared to do anything to usher the old president out and maintain his legacy, or are you all focusing on President Grimes moving forward, and how will you all storyboard his vision for the university? Are you all working on a plan for that?
Yes, so there is a plan to retire Dr. Jackson. We have created visuals. I don't want to put all of it out there yet, but we have created visuals and storytelling to tell that message, and we've already started to tell the story of Judge Grimes.
I just want to piggyback on a word you said, which is storytelling, and I think that's something that's been consistent throughout this whole conversation in crisis management, whether it's marketing or celebrating someone. Tell your story, because Americans love stories. We love movies. We love to see the rise of people, and sadly, we love to see the fall of people, and so you have to be able to tell that arc and to show that, and that would be my piece of advice for anyone going through a crisis or bringing in a new president or sending one out.
Absolutely.
And to revert back to your question about moving forward, I'm thinking about, when was graduation in May?
May 10th, May 8th, one of those.
Between April and May, there were some dark days on the Bethune-Cookman University campus, and between alumni and administration and students, it was a whole lot going on. And from my time being here, it's probably the worst I ever seen. But when you get to that point, after graduation was done and Secretary DeVos went back to wherever she came from, everybody was in the spirit of let's move forward and get our university back to where it was, because we can't have this too much longer, because it was draining. And you just want to rise, you want to do better, and you want to live up to the legacy which you lived, because we lived this thing with alumni. This is not something an administrator from over this way talking about, this is what is our game plan, this is what we're going to do. This is our second home, and we take it really serious. So after the crisis, like any other family, you want to come together and make it better, especially for BCU 2021. We didn't want them to walk into all of that.
Right.
So, you change the dynamics of what Bethune-Cookman University stands for and what we want to project. And this team had a big deal in doing that.
Yes,
Great.
kudos to the Fantastic Four. A final few questions. The tone in the media has changed since President Grimes has been appointed president. What do you all charge that to?
I would say his experience in the community, and them actually not having to wonder. They don't have to do research on him. They know him, and they know he probably helped them. Mr. Grimes, his hand, well, Judge Grimes, President Judge, I got to get that right, in the community. So I really think they have a chance to, he had a chance to prove himself before he got in this seat. And it's not a big question mark hanging over everyone's head about who is this man and what he stands for.
That's good.
I agree also. And his transparency and coming straight out in meeting with these different groups. As soon as he was appointed, I believe he met with the local alumni chapter. Mm-hmm. He met with, I believe, the local NAACP. he'll be meeting with the African American Chamber of Commerce. So he's meeting with these groups and having candid conversations with them to make sure that we are all on the same page, that what was done, and we are moving forward.
Yeah, about being personable.
Yes.
And real recognize real. I don't know if that's going to make it on camera, but real recognize real. And he's very genuine.
Yes.
He is.
And he's not only had a chance to prove himself in the community, but at Bethune-Cookman University. He's been a part of the legacy for over 20 years. And the lady he has on his right side,
Yes.
we know for
Yes.
ourselves that it's
Yes.
going to be all right. Miss Daisy Grind.
Yes.
So,
Shout out.
Shout out.
Shout out. So in closing, any final words for anyone listening that might be headed towards a crisis or coming out of a crisis? Any final words that you all want to share with our audience today?
If you
One-
are, oh, go ahead, Troy.
I would just say weather the storm. It's only going to be here for a while. Make sure you're organized and you have everything that you need to get through the storm, and just weather it.
I agree with Troy. Also, if you see the crisis coming, have a plan, have a team. If you don't see the crisis coming, when it comes, gather your thoughts, sit down, and gather key people that will help you get through the storm. So,
Edward?
I would say weather the storm. Teamwork is important, but also be optimistic. Because when things hit in a crisis, it's really easy to say you either want to give up, you don't want to have nothing to do with it, or, go with your own personal feelings. But you have to take a moment and instead of moving off of impulse, look at all sides of the story.
yep. Last thing I want to say is truth. Make sure that what is inserted in your message, in your story, what you are projecting is truthful, and that we can be insightful to our audience, whoever you're trying to give the message to, that you are speaking your truth.
Tell the truth and shame the devil.
That is great. Well, you all have heard it here first on Talk Tuesday, also known as the Wildcat News Feed. Thank you so much for tuning in with us, and join us next week on Talk Tuesday for the real, raw, and relevant facts about what's going down on the campus of Bethune-Cookman University.